cannot remember a time when one faction of one party promises economic chaos if it can't get 100% of what it wants. That's never happened before. But that's what's happening right now. Are some of these folks really so beholden to one extreme wing of their party that they're willing to tank the entire economy just because they can't get their way on this issue? Are they really willing to hurt people just to score political points?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, soundbite we played previously. Welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And as promised, we are joined right now by Richard Wolffe. You see him on MSNBC all the time. He is the executive editor of MSNBC.com, also vice president. And he is a former senior White House correspondent for Newsweek and the author of Renegade, which was a New York Times bestseller, which makes him a New York Times best-selling author. And he's back in the studio. Richard Wolffe, good to see you again, sir.
To be with you.
All right. My hands are cold because the studio is ice. That's
okay.
how I like to keep it. Anyway, the new book, The Message, The Reselling of President Obama by Richard Wolffe, which I hold in my hands right now as we speak. Before we get to the book and the premise and what it's all about and how it takes us through the 2012 campaign, we just played a soundbite where Barack Obama went through with his scheduled press conference yesterday, acknowledging the 5-year anniversary of the financial collapse. He did, unlike Fort Hood, where he waited about 3 minutes and gave a shout-out before he mentioned the shooting at Fort Hood when that took place in 2009, he did lead with this shooting, but then went on to trash and bash Republicans and even say, are they really willing to hurt people? And even the folks on MSNBC, took issue with what he said yesterday. Bad idea?
Yeah, I think presidents at this time, at a time of one of these horrific massacres, have to strike a different tone. They have to speak for the nation, and there is a time for the politics to kick in. I mean, Congress hasn't done anything to react to any of these things, whether you think it's about mental health, whether you think it's about gun reform, whatever you think.
Video games. Whatever.
Or video games,
yeah.
Whatever the reaction is, there has been nothing. And but that wasn't the moment for it. It wasn't the moment for it when you're talking about the economy. It wasn't the moment for it on the day when you're still dealing with the aftermath of that kind of thing. So yeah, I think it was jarring. I don't think the tone was right. And
of course, earlier in the day, Michelle Obama at about 10 a.m., 10:30, while this was all unfolding, told students that tonight in an event that I praised the White House for canceling it, because as of I went off the air last night, it still hadn't been canceled, the Latino music event. She said that the president was going to shake his groove thing. I mean, are they getting bad advice, or are they out of touch, or how could they say something like that?
Well, yeah, I don't know enough about when the First Lady's timing is on everything, but, you do have to stand up and pay attention when these terrible massacres happen, and they are happening with increasing frequency. Is it bad advice? This has been the running theme of this administration, and obviously I know your audience doesn't much like the policy agenda that this president has had.
We have all people in the audience.
That's
yes.
Okay. But even for the supporters of this president, one of the perplexing things is how someone who can give such a great speech can stumble so often about the message, whether it's about healthcare, whether it's about withdrawing from Iraq, or in this case, Syria, even the Recovery Act. Most of these members of Congress said, we don't think this is a good idea, or it's going to blow out the deficit, but they were very happy to get the funds in their districts and their states. So they liked the money being spent. The local part of it, yeah. And they liked the fact that it was going into people's jobs. And the White House, even coming out of elections that they win in a big way, 2 elections with over 50% of the vote, no small feat, has stumbled time and time and again. I try to get at some of that with this book. Is it bad advice? Is it him? Is it a combination? Whatever it is, it keeps happening.
Well, it does keep happening, and it's very interesting, and all this is addressed in the book. But let me also, he comes out and he says, and the media seems to back him up on this, that he won the election. Romney lost the election. I think he mentioned that yesterday as well when it comes to Obamacare. Yes, but the Republicans gained seats in the House, so they also won elections. So, are we running the country based on who's in the White House and he rules by decree? Or do the Republicans get to say, well, we won and our constituents don't want this, so we're not going to go along with you just because you won the national election? I mean, it just seems that he doesn't get things done. and isn't able to get things done, and maybe there's a reason for that.
There's a lot packed in there, right?
Yeah.
You know, let's just reverse it a bit. Democrats won Congress in 2006. President Bush had just won re-election in a big way, much bigger than he won in 2000.
Right.
When you talk about a national mandate, the presidency clearly trumps these state-by-state, district-by-district votes. However, the dynamic that you're getting to in Congress, these members of the House have to look after their own skin. They have to look after their own constituents. And many of them, because of gerrymandering, because of the dynamics involved, they are really only playing to their own base. Democrats and Republicans. It's not a healthy thing. It's not the way the system is set up, but it is what it is. And if you're president and you're having to work with the other party, then you've got to find a way to pull the lever that speaks to them, that isn't going to lose them votes or get them primaried. And that's obviously a dynamic this president has struggled to adapt to. Now, a lot of the Republicans that came in 2010 were completely committed to opposing the president no matter what. That's a very difficult dynamic for any president. I think President Bush had something similar in 2006. Is it healthy for the system? No, but it is the divided power. I mean, that's how it was set up. It's supposed to be difficult for presidents to do things. That is the Constitution. Right. And, does it make the president weaker? Yeah, intentionally so.
Well, okay, let's talk about the book, The Message, the reselling of President Obama. How on earth do you account for the fact, and I know you're going to tell me the ground game and the, and all this kind of stuff, and I guess that's going to be the answer, but did anybody...
You can't answer my question, but answer your own question.
I like asking and answering.
That was like a whole Chris Matthews thing.
But nobody, let me phrase it this way. Did you expect that a greater percentage of African Americans and the people who came out for the historic election wanted to be a part of history, that usually don't come out in those kinds of numbers, to vote for the first black president? Was there any indication that the percentage would be higher in 2012 for Obama?
I think it was surprising. Look, I'll be honest with you. They have a tremendous ground game. Every campaign from here on out is going to try and copy what they did. Yeah, but it wasn't just that they found people and they had these great analytics and data and everything else. And they did, but they also had to have a very clear thing to take to people. And they had to be able to repeat it across the board. It wasn't just African-American voters. It was infrequent voters, where there were, independent women in the suburbs and the exurbs. They were very careful about their targeting. So, when Romney and his allies had more money than they did, everyone could predict that. No one could predict that the Obama people would be smarter about how to spend the money. They found these obscure cable shows in the middle of the night that could reach infrequent voters. And the Romney people were just spending their money like there was no tomorrow. I mean, that's an irony, right? Someone who says, I know how to run a business, I care about the deficit. They wasted a lot of money on the Romney side. So they were smart. It wasn't just the ground game. It was also that they had a message that worked and that they knew how to spend money.
Because, well, we're talking to Richard Wolffe here, the author of The Message, also executive editor of MSNBC.com, the new book, The Message, the Reselling of President Obama. But look, I do show after show, and a show doesn't go by where we don't talk about media bias. Mm-hmm. And it is so rampant. I mean, I'll never understand why the Republicans, don't speak up, as they're starting to a little bit, or they alluded to the fact that they might withhold their certain networks from participating in their primary debates. Why they agree to these left-wing moderators who do nothing, like Candy Crowley, wrong in what she said. The president never specifically called Benghazi a terrorist attack, and just might have turned the election on that. I blame Romney for not hitting on Benghazi more, for not taking on the abortion issue, because America, you mentioned gerrymandering, I believe the Republicans control most of the state houses and won most of the seats in the Congress, and there was a seat change because America is a conservative nation. And if the Republicans would fight on the issues, abortion on demand versus these limitations on abortion, I think most decent people would say abortion on demand, that's disgusting. If the Republicans wouldn't back away and concede a war on women, they'd win these issues. But I'm giving you two different issues here. Okay. Let's focus on the media.
I hear.
Romney goes to overseas and, Governor, what about your latest gaffe? I mean, it's disgusting. Newt Gingrich was the only one on that stage during the primaries who shot back at the liberal media and said, this is the stupidest question I ever heard. And that's what they all should do. And they shouldn't go on these shows that treat them like garbage and filth. and smile and try to win their affection. It's a losing proposition.
How come Gingrich didn't win the nomination then?
Well, he had other problems going on, but his poll numbers went up right after he confronted Maria Bartiromo and others.
You sound a lot like a bunch of Democrats did after John Kerry lost in 2004. The media was against him. They were for Bush. He needed to be clear about what he was saying. He needed to confront these things. He made his own mistakes. It's very, very similar. And that's a good debate to have if you're a Republican or you're conservative. I will say this, and this isn't easy for someone to say from MSNBC, but the #1 news channel on cable is what?
Is Fox?
It's Fox News.
Yeah.
So it's the #1. And yet you still say somehow the conservative voices are not being heard.
Wait.
It's the #1 news channel.
What does
what's
that
the
have to do
#1
with anything?
best-selling newspaper in this country? No, what's the #1 selling newspaper in this country?
I have no idea.
Wall Street Journal.
Okay.
Owned by Rupert Murdoch as well.
But here's the deal.
The conservative voices are everywhere. You guys are fast-growing, an important voice, and yet you say somehow the media isn't reflecting what you guys are doing.
So you don't think there's media bias out there?
I think there is conservative media. I think there is progressive media, and I think the conservative media is having a great time of it. I think you guys are getting heard all over the place.
Yes, but you
have what is the biggest radio shows out there? It's conservative talk radio. You have a tremendous megaphone.
Let's sort of stick to TV. You point to Fox. Now, I have no allegiance to Fox News whatsoever. Okay, they don't pay me anything. I don't go on their air much anymore. But here's the deal.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I could name you liberal hosts or progressive hosts. Shepard Smith, Geraldo.
Whoa. You saying Shepard Smith is a liberal host?
I'm saying he's way to the left. But
seriously?
Okay, but O'Reilly is not. O'Reilly has come much center and much more left than he was at the beginning. My point is, if you look at Fox News,
That's a headline. You're saying Bill O'Reilly's center left?
I'm saying he's more to the left than he used to be. Absolutely. Absolutely. On issue after issue after issue.
Okay.
And look at the interview we did with the President of the United States during Super Bowl Sunday a couple of years ago. Softball.
Wow.
Very disappointing.
Okay.
But he makes a fortune, so I don't believe he cares anymore. But here's the deal. You cite Fox News. Fox News, they always have someone on the left represented, and they in a debate when it's a one-on-one, a left point of view, a right point of view. Who does MSNBC have on the right besides Joe Scarborough, who I'm very disappointed in? Who else? Who else does the whole network have on the quote-unquote right? The whole network. Name me one.
So
how about CNN? Where are the conservatives on CNN?
You're going to let me answer?
Yeah, I wish.
All right.
Go ahead.
So apart from Joe Scarborough, who happens to be one of our biggest talents and runs the best morning show on TV.
And gets very poor ratings, but go ahead.
Okay, well, you say that. We don't believe that.
Well, you're telling me his ratings are good. The whole network is tanking.
Okay.
Is that not true?
No, it's not true.
It's not true.
No,
the whole network's not tanking.
So Joe Scarborough is very solidly the #2 show, and we're very happy about that. CNN would be very lucky to get the kind of numbers that Joe Scarborough gets. We're very proud of him. We're very proud of the debate that they have every single day on that show around that round table.
Debate with which right-wingers?
I think Joe gets a lot of time to be the most
So Joe
forceful.
is the one, you're admitting. Joe is the token
on Morning
quote-unquote, and where else on the network is other right?
Okay, so I don't know if you probably don't watch Rachel Maddow's show. You don't.
She's a conservative?
No, I'm just asking you. You don't watch Rachel
from
Maddow's
time
show.
to time. I watch everything.
So one of the biggest regulars she has on her show is a guy who ran the McCain campaign in 2008. His name is Steve Schmidt.
Doesn't make him a true conservative. Yeah, he's a rhino, and he's a loser. He's a rhino and he's a loser. And if the Republicans don't change the people,
he wasn't a loser when he ran the message for the Bush-Cheney campaign in 2004.
Okay. If the Republicans don't change the people running their campaigns and don't realize they're fighting a media more so even than the candidate that they're running against, they're doomed. I don't care who they put up in 2016. You
heard of a guy called Michael Steele. Michael Steele, who was the RNC chairman in the successful cycle in 2010.
You got Michael Steele in there, okay?
So
but you're picking
Steele,
one,
Steve Schmidt, Joe Scarborough.
Okay,
come on. You got to give me something.
But I don't want to pick on you with MSNBC's ratings. Right. We'll pick on that anymore. But Barack Obama, if you look at the polls, okay, we talked about Congress and his failure to get things done in Congress, and for whatever reason, whether they oppose everything Obama or whatever, the polls, whether it's Syria, whether it's healthcare. Look at what happened in Colorado with the recall on guns. The people don't support Barack Obama's policies. They don't. He won the election, but on issue after issue, they don't support his policies.
Why do you think he won with 51%?
You tell me. That's what I'm getting. You wrote the book. You tell me.
So I actually disagree with you because I think they support his policies more than they support him. Whenever they poll and they put Obama next to the policy, it goes down, right? So on individual parts of healthcare, no pre-existing conditions, extending healthcare to people in their family if they're up to 25.
Right.
All of these things are really popular.
Yeah.
And
You
when
could
they
fit
put
them
the
on
name,
a page. You could fit them right here. Here would be the popular parts of Obamacare.
Yeah.
Every poll shows people don't like the intrusiveness and the confusion, and rates are going up, and the people are
except
losing
in
their
California
jobs.
where they're going down.
They're not going down. That's a fallacy
doesn't
as
work?
well.
Those numbers aren't
No,
right.
it doesn't.
Okay.
McDonald's just went. Fast food industry just went to Washington begging to be excused because they can't afford it. This is a disaster. My point is, people
Except
don't.
in California where the rates are going down.
Well, then we should all move to California. People
Quite a
don't
bit of
like
people there.
Obama's policy. So how did he win? Why did he win?
Right. So obviously elections are a choice, and Mitt Romney was a much, much worse candidate who ran a disastrous campaign. That's one thing, right? You got to replace something with something else, and Mitt Romney just wasn't credible to most people. So that's a fundamental problem Republicans have. You can complain, but what are you going to replace things with? I just remind you about health care.
yeah.
Obamacare was based on the Republican response to Hillary care. You realize
Obamacare did not
You
get
do
a
realize
Republican
that.
vote. Do you realize that? Not one Republican vote.
except for the Supreme
and
Court.
almost didn't pass with the majority in the House of Democrats and in the Senate of Democrats.
But it did pass.
Yes, without a Republican vote.
Right.
The biggest takeover of our economy in any single bill ever, and it was a partisan boondoggle. Which even I mean, you think it should not be delayed? You think it should be implemented as planned? Seeing the disaster, seeing more and more people on the left, the unions all complaining, saying don't do it.
You think the unions have a point? You know why the unions? Some of the unions are opposing it, right?
Well, what do you mean? Give me the.
Well, I find it fascinating that you take the union criticism of a policy seriously. But in many cases, unions have opposed parts of Obamacare from the start because what they've been doing, instead of negotiating higher pay increases for people, they've negotiated ever higher health care packages for people. So in some cases, government workers are actually getting as much in their health care package as they do in their annual salary. That's not a good thing for anyone who cares about the deficit. That's not a good thing for how you run employment in general. That's what unions don't like. So don't try and say that's a position you agree with.
I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying for various reasons, people from the left and people from the right are calling this a disaster. We're out of time. Folks,
already?
The book, The Message, The Reselling of President Obama by Richard Wolffe. Read the book. Watch him on MSNBC. I'm glad you came up. It was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You.
All right, folks, we're coming back. Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV, and...